to the Business Blueprint Podcast, where we take you on an exciting adventure through our triumphs and challenges and failures in creating and maintaining a thriving 6, 7, and 8-figure business. Get ready to dive into our strategies, decisions, and yes, even valuable lessons we've learned from our missteps. But that's not all. We'll also bring you industry-leading guests who will provide you with their priceless insights and wisdom. Stay tuned because the captivating journey of the Business Blueprint begins right now. Hi, I'm Charles Hatley, and this is the Business Blueprint, where each week we take a dive into things that are going on in our world to show you the successes we have, to talk about the failures that we had, and to really explore things that have helped us along the way in growing our business and things that we think that we probably should have done differently in growing our business. So today, I'm joined by Rebecca Melone and Dan Cuneo, as always, and we're going to talk about numbers and specifically data. So in planning this, I made the joke that Data is more than a character on Star Trek. Data was a character on Star Trek. He talks about data. And it really got us thinking, when you're starting a business and you're just trying to get that first customer to walk in the door, how important is data to when you're trying to cross that 8 and 9-figure barrier? So I wanted to start with you today, Rebecca. When you were first starting your company, and like I said, you're trying to get those first customers, first clients to walk through the door. How much data, how much did you track? What did you look at for numbers?
Sure. My primary figures were just looking at the income and expenses, and I was looking at them daily, hourly, minute by minute, because I didn't have a bunch of capital to start with, right? I wasn't, and I really needed to be cautious in how I used every dollar, because after I paid my bar dues and my malpractice insurance, and I got, a fax number and all these just little things. I kept a journal at the time I was getting started. I think I started for right around like $3,000. That was kind of my get-go figure. And really it was just like, I have to at least break even. Fortunately, I was not in a position where I had to also pay a mortgage and also pay for daycare and also have all these other expenses. And so truly I could focus on purely breaking even until I could get to the point of being profitable. And by doing that, by being really cautious in how I was spending my money, I was able to be profitable from the first month that I got started. But I was not able to get a handle on things like my average case value or the average cost of acquisition, anything like that. And they also didn't really matter as much when I was getting going as it did, 5 years in. At that point, it became a lot more important to understand a lot of the numbers that were going into it. But just getting started, it was definitely the income, the expenses. What is my monthly, baseline that I have to get over just to survive and not go into debt? That was the most important figure for me.
Well, I like that you talk about that, because I think that so often, we look at businesses and we see these things with these beautiful dashboards, these beautiful, graphical interfaces. And, you did bring up that you had the idea of a KPI. I needed to cross a certain number of dollars each month in order to keep my door open. So that kind of was KPI number one, right? Gross revenue.
Right.
Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah. And I was tracking everything pretty much on spreadsheets, because any sort of monthly recurring cost was just really off-putting to me. So I stayed away from anything like a QuickBooks or another accounting, anything like a subscription service. And I truly just crunched numbers myself, kept track of everything on a spreadsheet. And that's how I was able to see, how I was doing day by day, week by week, month by month.
And Dan, when we talk about KPIs, I'll be very honest. There was a long time before I knew what KPI even meant. I was like, that's me. So can you tell us a little about the KPIs that you like to look at and what you consider important?
Sure. KPIs, key performance indicators. It's an acronym that when you're starting out, you really don't think about, right? Just like data. You don't think about what data do I need? It's just, I'm going to hang my shingle, or I'm going to open this business or this storefront, and the customers are going to come into me. Well, that's not always the case. And KPIs are fluid in the sense that they should always be changing. I mean, you want to have your set KPIs as you get more established in your business, but as you're first starting out, I mean, I agree. Your first KPI really needs to be revenue, right? What is the revenue that you want to bring in, that you are bringing in, so you can measure, what do I need to do to get there? And then from there, you just build upon the KPIs, whether it's for yourself or as you're hiring other positions, whether it's an attorney or an associate employee, whatever the case may be. I always look at KPIs. What does this role need to do to be successful? Not the person, but what does the role need to do to be successful? And how does that success equate to the success of the firm or the company? But then you eventually, once you're more established, you tie that into your core values, which we've talked about on other podcasts that we've had. And then they kind of go hand in hand. But KPIs are what does success look like to that particular role.
Mm-hmm. And I think that you're touching on something very important there, and that is the KPI is individual to the role. It's individual to the company. It's individual to where you are within your company. Do you think, Dan, that it's possible to take canned KPIs and apply them across the board?
It's possible. There's Cameron Harold, who started the COO Alliance and 1-800-GOT-JUNK and a couple other companies, used this phrase when we were in a meeting together, R&D, right? Rip and deploy, or replicate and deploy. And it's good to have a baseline. I mean, if someone else has created something, why not try to maybe tailor it to what your needs are? No sense in reinventing the wheel. That just takes a lot of time, a lot of effort and energy that you don't need, or you may not need, and then can be applied or reallocated to growing your business or your firm. So it's always good just to see what's out there and then tailoring it to the specific needs of your company.
Yeah, there's a book that I enjoy very much so on KPIs called Key Performance Indicators. It's by Bernard Marr. And it is just a big book of different KPIs that you could use. It's just a big book of examples with kind of explanations of examples. And I liked that because it helped me kind of envision them in my mind. And KPIs are something that you can't start with the most refined number, right, Rebecca? You've got to start, like you said, with my basic numbers. So can you kind of give us an example? What was the 5 most important numbers that you started with as your baseline?
Oh my goodness. 5. It was real. I mean, income and expenses, right? Income and expenses. And I was absolutely fastidious with my IOLTA accounting because, for attorneys, we have to hold funds a certain way so that we don't get in trouble with the bar. And those were really kind of the key numbers for me, was just checking the bank accounts, my recurring expenses, knowing what I needed to make, to be kind of out the door and squeak out a little bit of a profit. I would say in getting going, looking at the overall number of clients I had was a good one. That becomes a little less meaningful. I think the bigger that you get, it's more difficult to say, okay, everybody has 25 clients, so we're good. Because client by client, the needs are very different. And so everything is going to be a little bit different as far as that goes. But my overall number of clients, the number of events and organizations that I was a part of, and sort of tracking, was I getting a return from it? Because again, being really cautious with that spend, if I'm going to pay hundreds of dollars to be part of a networking organization, I need to make sure that that's at least generating that much back for me. I have to at least be getting 1 client out of it, at least getting 2 clients out of it, something like that. So tracking my referral sources and what the cost benefit was of that. I would say those were kind of the most important. I don't even think I had 5. It was looking at, is my IOLTA account, is it generally going up? Meaning I'm having more clients, more retentions, or maybe higher retainers, people putting more money into deposit with me. My overall number of clients, my overall cost, kind of a cost of acquisition, right? But a little bit more general, I guess, than that, a little bit more fluid than that. Those were really the key metrics that I was looking at in getting started. Once I looked to add to the team, and so when I initially started adding members, it was through contract relationships. Then I really had to look at, okay, is there, after I've paid the insurance, the software, the advertising, the marketing, everything, and given somebody else this work to do, where's the profit from that? After paying them, is there still a profit? And so that became a lot more important as I was adding other members to the team as well. So really being mindful of the expenses has been kind of the top line the whole way through.
I think that's important, right? You say, hey, I've got to watch something. And, how often do you check your numbers today versus how often you checked your numbers when you're first getting started?
Still daily, because I'm just a little extra. And I like to know the account balances every single day. I want to make sure there's no funny transactions going on. I want to know kind of overall where we stand. Are we getting payments the way that we're expecting to for this time of the month? Was anything weird in payroll? That's just me. I'm just extra. If it were someone else at another company, I could see them saying, "Oh, I check, once or twice a week." Right? I check like Mondays and Fridays to see sort of overall where the week went and things like that. But I like to stay, and I truly, honestly, it would be multiple times a day. It's more than once a day for me.
Dan, when you're thinking, I'll ask you kind of the same question. Are there numbers that you say, look, I need to see this daily, and another number I can see this weekly, and to be honest, another number I can see monthly?
Yeah, it's tough. I actually agree with Rebecca on the same way. And not that it's the right way, but it's just, I like to check the health of the company. And I know on a daily basis, it's not going to give you the true accurate picture, but I also think it's doing our due diligence as leaders or managers or owners, just to make sure there's nothing funky happening, nothing that's just sticking out that, oh, I haven't seen that before. Maybe I should look into it. But I think, on a weekly basis is probably good, monthly for sure, but you don't want to check beyond that, because then you may be behind the eight ball in the sense of it's hard to course correct when you're weeks, months, doing it. But it's as long as you're checking it and being diligent on doing it, I think as managers, leaders, and owners, probably twice a week is good, just to see if you see a trend in any particular department or any particular employee. And if they're a billing employee, are you seeing a trend? And you can't get caught up too much in the data on such a myopic view, right? If you're looking at it on a daily or weekly basis, because there are those trends. But it does kind of give you an idea of what to expect, and to make sure that you're at least on pace for what that particular goal or that KPI is for that department or for that employee. But I always want to look at revenue and expenses, because you could have, revenue is what, vanity is what I've heard a lot of people say.
Mhm.
But you can have all the revenue and all the vanity, but if you're heavy on expenses, it's really just negating that revenue. And so you have to really hold the line on expenses. But I think, just to kind of circle back to your question, at least daily for me, but I think a good rule of thumb is minimum weekly, just to get that good pulse or that health check.
I think one thing to note is our company is growing much more quickly than a lot of others, right? And so when we're expanding and doubling, and we've grown 2,000% in the past 3 years, it's a little bit different. Things are moving a lot more quickly in our industry and in our company in particular than they might be in someone who's a little bit more established and has kind of remained close to the same size, and they're more looking at overall trends that are going to take more time. For us, we're going to need to hire that quickly, so we have to be really mindful of when hours start going up, when the clients start going up, then we need to start looking to hire again. Those changes happen so rapidly just because we're growing so fast.
Let me ask you this, Rebecca. How much do you say, because I'm growing so fast, I need to check my numbers more?
Mhm.
Or because I'm more on top of my numbers, it allows me to grow faster?
I think it's that's a little bit of a chicken and an egg, right? But if you read Scaling Up, or what was his first book, the Rockefeller
Wow.
Habits,
Yeah.
he talks a lot about rapidly growing companies and rapidly expanding companies, and basically that you have to shorten up your timelines on things that other companies can take more time to do. So someone else in a more established industry or more established company, they might do a yearly meeting and yearly business planning. And for us, since we're growing so much more quickly, we need to shorten that up and do like every 6 months or even every quarter. And our monthly meetings are really more like a weekly meeting that another company might have that was more established. And so you just kind of have to shorten up all of those time frames because you have to stay on top of things because they're changing so quickly, or they could change so quickly if you're not keeping right on top of them. So I think it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg. It enables us to respond more quickly and hire more quickly and react to situations more quickly. But it's also required because of the rapid growth.
And what you're talking about is looking at the data.
Mm-hmm.
And, kind of staying in the same line, Dan, if you had an established company and you were like, you know what, we want to grow. And I think that the way to grow is to double my sales force, double my marketing budget, just one thing. Just, I'm going to double my marketing budget. Let's just stick there. How would you advise a company that wanted to do something like that? What would be the next steps after they double their marketing budget?
I would walk them back a little bit because one, that's great that they have a goal in mind. I mean, going back to KPI, right? So we have a KPI, but then it's okay. If you want to double your marketing, why do you want to double your marketing? So I have a couple questions I would ask that company is it just for the sake of doubling your marketing? Or because you want to make sure that if you double the marketing, what is that going to net you in clients? And do you have the current staff to support that? So I'd back it up and say, okay, if we're going to double our marketing, what is your actual goal? Because if you double your marketing, you're going to increase your revenue. If you're going to increase your revenue, you're going to need to increase your production to get there. And so let's kind of maybe switch that a little bit. So you have a goal, and whether it's to double your revenue or X dollars, whatever that may be, how are we going to get there? And just kind of walk through it. In order to get X dollars, I'm going to need to bring in these many clients. In order to bring in these many clients, I need to spend this much in marketing. In order to spend this much in marketing, here's how I need to budget for that. And kind of walk them through that process. And once we have that established, then it goes into, all right, let's get this in play and keep a cautious eye on where are we growing it, because maybe there's other markets that we want to get into, and it's not necessarily a market that is in a different city or state, but maybe a nearby county that you can expand to where your marketing is reaching. So you just want to kind of keep an eye on where everything is coming in from as well. So going back to data, and this is such a great topic because data is it's such a huge umbrella that there's so much underneath it, right? To where, what does it really mean? What are we mining for? And then it's okay. So now if I'm expanding, where do I need to reallocate maybe some of my resources? So you're not taking away the marketing. You're just being a little bit more cognizant of what's coming in the door. And then what Rebecca was saying, what I was thinking about when you're fastly growing is, what does that really mean? Because a lot of companies get caught up in that and they think, oh, I'm growing, I need to hire and hire and hire and keep on this pace. But you're really doing yourself a disservice by that. So you have to take a look and think, okay, I am growing fast, but what does that mean? And how do I know when to hire? And that's really what I think a lot of companies are challenged with, is knowing when to hire. Not necessarily, we talk about quick to fire, slow to hire, but sometimes slow to hire in a rapidly growing company could do more damage. And so you have to really just take that step back to think, all right, is this the right time to hire, or at least start looking? Because some markets, they're harder to hire in. And so whatever your KPI is to determine when you need to hire, you might want to walk that back a little bit based upon the market that you're sourcing in.
And Dan, when you're talking about this, it had me just thinking about leading indicators. And one of the things that I always struggle with is finding what a leading indicator is towards an actual KPI. Can you guys just discuss with us what a leading indicator is and how to apply those to your KPIs?
One of the things that comes to my mind, and it's just a lot of experience that I have, is looking at clients that are calling in. What are the leading indicators on certain marketing campaigns, right? So you have a marketing campaign out there, whatever that may be, and you have individuals that are calling, right? The phone is ringing. And then you have individuals that are scheduling. Then you have individuals that are showing. Those are all leading indicators that particular campaign is working or is not working. But they're leading indicators in the sense of, what is it that I need to do next? Because you have the phone that's ringing. Do you have the support to take the calls that are coming in? And where I've, in my prior positions, we had the phone ringing a lot, but we didn't have the staff that was able to answer it. But then we employed the staff, but then it's okay, we still have these calls that are coming in. How long are we on the phone for? And that was some of the data that I really wanted to start looking in, because some of the calls were lasting 5, 8, 10 minutes. But if we cut that back, you're able to answer more calls. And then you're shortening the time that was in the queue, and you're able to service more clients. So the leading indicators are wonderful as long as you can identify what it is that you're looking for, and you can then determine what you need to do with that information. And it's hard in the beginning, and especially when, I can just say myself, I didn't go to law school to be a business person, right? and lawyers, from my experience in other positions, are just bad business people,
Yeah.
and they don't teach you that in law school. So it's hard to really pick up on things. But if Rebecca's talked about joining organizations, that's a wonderful idea to consider, and hopefully you can do a lot of reading. That you mentioned a lot of books, Charles, that you've read, or podcasts you're listening to. It's just these other sources that are out there that help us out, so we can not get away from the business, but be able to work on the business, not always in the business.
Yeah, data is a wonderful topic. And, I want to thank you all for talking to me about it today. And next week, we're going to continue this conversation, talking about leading indicators, talking about, one of my favorite things. Most business owners didn't go to business school. The reality is we didn't. It's something that we have to learn and come together to learn. So I want to thank you for joining us today for the Business Blueprint. If you enjoyed this material, please hit subscribe. If you've got questions, or if you would like us to talk about something, leave it in the comments. We love to talk about things like that, and we look forward to getting able to talk to you next time. Hi, I'm Charles Hatley with the Business Blueprint, and today is part 2 of our conversation on data and data analytics and KPIs. And I'm again joined by Rebecca and Mr. Dan Cuneo. And last time we kind of ended the conversation on.
Hi, this is Dan Cuneo with the Business Blueprint. Thank you for taking time to listen to this week's podcast. Please join us next week for part 2.
Thanks for tuning in. If you found this insightful and entertaining, be sure to hit subscribe below and join us on social media to get more insight into what we are going through each and every day.